And because it is Sanctity of Life Sunday, our message will have to do with the sanctity of life. You know, last week I was privileged to speak with a grandmother who told me a story about her granddaughter. And she said, you know, I think it's the granddaughter is 3 or 4 years old now, but she said, you know, every time we come to the Sanctity of Life Sunday, I just cannot help. She said, but just praise God for my granddaughter, because she said actually she was conceived out of wedlock. And because the father did not want to have anything to do at first with the baby, a decision was made by her daughter to abort the baby. And so they were on their way to the abortion clinic, and she again asked the father what he thought of the baby. And because she really didn't want to go through with it, especially without the help of the father. And the father said something like, well, you know, maybe we can work together and raise this child. And she said, that's all that my daughter wanted to hear. I said, well, let's turn around. And so they went back home. She said, had they not made that decision to turn around and go back home, she said, I would not have my granddaughter today. That's just one example. Like I said, in reality, in our country now, an average of about 1 million babies a year are not given the chance to live. There are many who make a decision to abort the baby, and there are many who are working so hard so that it will continue to happen. But as the people of God, one of the reasons why God continued to allow us to be on earth is so that we can make disciples, first of all, and bring more souls into the kingdom, but also so that we can be the conscience of our society. The conscience of our society. So that the will of God may be known in our society. And so we will continue to stand up and proclaim the sanctity of the human life. That human life is sacred. And from the verse that I read to you this morning, it tells us exactly why the human life is sacred. Sometimes we talk of sanctity, and people say, well, what does sanctity mean anyway? Well, it speaks of the sacredness of it. It is sacred. It is sacred and must be held sacred and must be treated sacredly, because that's how God designed it. So let me read again Psalm 139, starting in verse 13. Where the psalmist wrote, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. So there are a few things that I would just like to highlight from this passage that tells us why life is sacred. The first thing that I read in verse 13 is that we were created. You see, every human life is created by the Creator, by God Himself. And according to Genesis chapter 1, we're not just simply created. We are the only species on earth that's created in the image of God. We're not animals. Tell the person sitting next to you, you're not an animal. You can say you act like one sometimes. No, don't say that. No, don't say that. Okay? But the sad thing is just like the question of Nathan earlier. Are we mammals? Because that's how our society tries to lower the standard of the human life. That we're just the highest form of animals. We're just animals. No, we're not. We are human beings. We are the only ones created in the image of God. And we have to see every human life in that way. Every human life in that way. Not only the life that we can see now as us, but the Bible also tells us, as what we read. What did the psalmist say? You saw my unformed body. Unformed. See, the Bible tells us that life begins at conception. For every baby conceived, the first day, the first second that baby is conceived, God creates a soul. For a human life is composed of the soul and the body. Our human bodies produce the human body in the way that God designed it with procreation. But for every body conceived in the womb, God creates a soul for that body. For without the soul in that body will not be human life. You see, what makes us different from the animals is that we have a soul. Yes, every single human life is composed of the body that we see and the soul that we do not see. The Bible tells us that when the soul separates from the body dies. For the body cannot live apart from the soul. The human life is incomplete if the two are separated. That's why even in heaven, we will live as body and soul together. So we're not just all going to be souls roaming around in heaven. No, we're going to be human bodies with soul. The only difference is that it will be a glorified body. A body that will not decay anymore like the body that we have here on earth now. And that is why our salvation includes not only the soul, but includes the body as well. And so even though there are people who can touch the body and kill it, they cannot touch the soul. That's why we praise God that those babies aborted, over 50 million of them since 1973, they're all in heaven. They are in heaven. And we praise God for that, because that was made possible also by the death of Jesus Christ. So, going back to what the psalmist said, the reason why human life is sacred is because it's created in the image of God. Some people will argue that the reason why the human life is sacred is because of the potential of every human life. It is true that every human life has potential. Some people are saying, who knows, maybe one of those 15 million babies could have been the one that discovered the cure for cancer. That could have been the potential, right? But again, it's not the potential that makes it sacred. It's the fact that that life is created in the image of God. It is not us that decides whether a human life is sacred or not. It is God. Each human life is sacred to God. And each human life must become sacred to us. And we must do everything that we can so that every human life will have an opportunity to come to know Jesus Christ. The psalmist continued and said, "You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." One Christian comedian said, yes, that's true. Some of us are just fearfully made, but not wonderfully made. I don't know if you are that. But the psalmist said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. But actually, the word fearfully there should actually be translated carefully. Carefully. What does that mean? That means it wasn't just at random. It means that it wasn't an accident. It wasn't an accident. So again, not only are we created in the image of God, the Bible also tells us that each human life was purposefully and wonderfully created by God. Purposefully. No human life is an accident. Even if your parents called you an oops. We've heard that, right? Yeah, this is our oops. No. You're purposefully, fearfully, and wonderfully made by God. Tell the person sitting next to you, you are not an accident. That's not supposed to be funny. Right? No one is an accident. Each one is fearfully and wonderfully made. So even if that person sitting next to you does not look wonderful, In the eyes of God, that person is wonderfully made. All right? That's what the psalmist says. And you know what he said after that? The psalmist said, I know that full well. And I'm sure you can say that to the person sitting next to you, right? I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I know that full well. That is what the psalmist said. I know that full well. And it's not because of how good he was, but he's actually speaking of the character and power of God. You know why? Because God does not make mistakes. If you know God to be someone who doesn't make a mistake, then you should know that when He created you, He did not make a mistake. I heard the name. I'm not going to repeat it. So say to the person sitting next to you, I'm not a mistake. Not a mistake. And you know what? The psalmist said, you should know that full well. But that goes for every human life again, created by God. That's why the human life is sacred. It's not because of what we think about it, but because of what God says that it is. And that goes, again, for every human life, formed or unformed. Of course, that includes the babies in the womb. Whether it's fully formed or not, it is created in the image of God. Fearfully and purposefully and wonderfully created by God. And we have to tell the world about that. Do not be afraid to tell the world about that. Part of doing that is making known the riches of God's mercy for every human life.